Hey folks, if you like stories about American grit, real innovation, and how one stubborn guy with grease on his hands rewrote the rules of work and wealth, you're in the right place. Today we're talking Fordization, the term for the mass production system Henry Ford invented that changed the world. It's also called Fordism, but the method, the vision, and the results came straight from Detroit, not some European classroom. This is the story of how Ford turned expensive toys into transportation for the masses, paid his workers more than anyone else in the business, and created the template for modern prosperity. We'll cover the key turning points, some eye-opening facts and curiosities, the good and the gritty parts, and why this history still hits hard for folks who believe in building, earning, and keeping what you earn. Let's roll back to 1900. Automobiles were around, but they were handcrafted, unreliable, and cost more than most houses. Only the wealthy could afford them. Everyone else walked, rode horses, or took trains and streetcars. Personal freedom on wheels? Not for regular Americans. Henry Ford was born July 30th, 1863, on a farm near what's now Dearborn, Michigan. He hated farm work but loved taking things apart and putting them back together better. He left home young, worked for the Edison Illuminating Company in Detroit, and spent nights in his shed building engines. In 1896, he finished his first car, the quadricycle, basically a motorized buggy with bicycle wheels. It ran, but it was just the beginning. Ford tried starting car companies and failed at first. The Detroit Automobile Company raised big money in 1899, but built fancy, expensive cars that didn't sell well. Ford learned the hard way, volume and simplicity beat luxury every time. To get attention and investors, he built a racing car called the 999, a stripped-down beast with a massive engine. In 1901, he drove it to victory against the reigning champ, Alexander Winton. The headlines and prize money helped him attract backers. On June 16, 1903, Ford and 12 investors put up $28,000 and started the Ford Motor Company. Ford kept a big ownership stake through his ideas and drive. They sold their first car that July. The real mission was clear from the start. Build a car tough enough for bad roads, simple enough for anyone to fix, and cheap enough that a working man could own one. The Model T hit the market in October 1908, priced around $825. It had a 20-horsepower four-cylinder engine, a rugged design, and that famous quip from Ford, you could have any color as long as it was black. The reason was pure production logic. Black enamel dried fastest, so they could keep cranking out cars without slowing the line. Early assembly at the Piquette Avenue plant was still traditional handwork by skilled craftsmen. It was slow, expensive, and kept prices too high for the average buyer. The breakthrough that changed everything came from an unexpected source. Ford and his engineers visited the big Chicago meatpacking plants. They watched hog carcasses moving on overhead trolleys while each worker performed one specialized cut as it passed. Disassembly at industrial speed. Ford asked the obvious question, why not reverse that for building cars? Move the chassis past stationary workers instead of making workers walk all over the factory chasing parts. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoy this video and find it entertaining. If you'd like to see more content like this, check out my YouTube channel. They experimented in 1913 with a moving line for flywheel magnetos. It worked so well they scaled it up. On December 1st, 1913, the full moving assembly line started at the new Highland Park plant, a bright modern factory designed for flow. A chain or rope pulled the chassis along while teams stayed in place doing one simple, repeatable task each. Bolting on a wheel, attaching a fender, dropping in the engine. No more master craftsmen doing the whole job. Just discipline, time repetition. The numbers were staggering. Before the line, assembling a chassis took more than 12.5 hours. After full implementation, it took 93 minutes, an 88% cut in labor time. Production exploded. In 1914, Ford turned out over 260,000 cars with only 13,000 workers. The entire rest of the U.S. auto industry made roughly the same number of cars but needed 5 times as many employees. Prices dropped fast to $490 by 1914 and as low as $260 by the mid-1920s. The Model T went from dream to reality for millions. By the late 1910s, Fords accounted for over 40% of all cars on American roads. Before production ended in 1927, Ford built more than 15 million Model Ts. That single model and the system behind it reshaped a nation. Here's where Ford showed real genius beyond the machines. The line was brutally efficient but brutally boring too. Standing in one spot doing the same motion hour after hour wore men down. Turnover went crazy, 300 to 400% a year. Good workers were quitting faster than they could be replaced. Ford didn't call for regulations or blame the men. On January 5, 1914, he announced the $5 workday, more than double the previous average of about $2.34 a day, and cut the shift from 9 hours to 8. At first it came with strings. A sociological department checked that workers lived decent lives, stayed sober, and supported their families. Critics called it paternalistic or even socialist meddling. Ford's reasoning was straight capitalist logic. Higher pay reduced turnover and training costs. It bought loyalty and effort. Most importantly, it turned his own workforce into customers. Now a Ford worker could actually afford to buy the car he helped build after a few months. Mass production of goods plus decent wages that created buyers. That virtuous cycle is the heart of what we call Fordism. The company's profits doubled within a couple years, even with the higher wages. Other industrialists complained Ford was ruining the labor market by making cheap workers hard to find. Ford didn't care. He had aligned incentives so everyone, owner, worker, and customer, came out ahead. No government program required. Just smart business that rewarded productivity and shared the gains. Ford kept innovating on the labor side. In 1926, his company became one of the first major employers to go to a 5-day, 40-hour workweek. He believed men needed time with their families and to be good citizens, not just cogs in a machine. Rested, stable workers were more productive long-term, and people with leisure buy more goods. It was another win-win move rooted in understanding human nature and economics. The impact reached far beyond Detroit. Once ordinary families could own cars, everything changed. Farmers got their crops to market faster and cheaper. Families took weekend drives. Young people gained independence. Dating moved from the front porch to the front seat. Cities expanded into suburbs because commuting was now practical. Demand for good roads exploded, helping push the Federal Aid Road Act and later the interstate system. Entire new industries boomed: oil, rubber, steel, glass, art suppliers, and long-haul trucking that competed with railroads. The multiplier effect from one manufacturing breakthrough lifted the whole economy and gave Americans a level of personal mobility previous generations never imagined. When World War II came, that same production know-how became a decisive advantage. Ford built the massive Willow Run plant, and at peak output was rolling a complete B-24 Liberator bomber off the line every 63 minutes, 24 hours a day. American factories organized on Fordist principles outproduced the Axis and helped secure victory. Private enterprise, scaled and efficient, proved it could deliver national strength when needed. The label Fordism was popularized later by the Italian writer Antonio Gramsci in his prison notebooks in the 1930s when he analyzed Americanism and Fordism as a new phase of capitalism combining rationalized mass production with high wages and mass consumption. Academics have debated it ever since, some focusing on the control aspects, others on the prosperity it created. But the actual invention, the engineering, the business decisions, and the spectacular results, that was Henry Ford and his American engineers and workers. No foreign theorist built the first moving line or decided to pay double wages to fix turnover. Let's be honest about the rough edges. The assembly line work was repetitive and could feel dehumanizing. Some men hated the pace and the monotony. Ford ran his company with a firm hand and pushed back aggressively against union organizers and outside agitators who wanted a say in how he managed his own shop. The sociological department home visit struck many as intrusive. Those are fair criticisms. But put it in context. Before Ford's system, a lot of factory work was low-paid, dangerous, and offered no path up. The line and the $5 day gave steady jobs, the highest wages in the industry, and a realistic shot at the American dream: a home, a car security for the family. Millions of workers took that deal and helped build the broad middle class that defined post-war America. Living standards for working families rose dramatically in that period. The data is clear. When productivity and pay are linked through real value creation, ordinary people win. Today, the original Ford system has been updated and improved. Japanese manufacturers studied it closely, then developed lean production and just-in-time methods to reduce waste and give workers more input on improvements. Automation and robots now handle many of the most repetitive or dangerous tasks. But the core principles Ford proved, interchangeable standardized parts, continuous material flow, breaking complex jobs into simple repeatable steps, and using volume to drive costs down so more people can buy the product, remain the foundation of manufacturing success all over the world. You see echoes of Highland Park in every efficient factory, making everything from cars to electronics to appliances. That's the origin and history in a nutshell. A farm boy who couldn't stand plowing turned his mechanical obsession into a system that put America on wheels, paid workers well for honest output, and proved that private enterprise focused on efficiency and customer value creates broad prosperity. Here's my short reflection to close. Fordization isn't just about old factories or one man's ego. It's living proof that American-style capitalism, when it's allowed to operate without constant interference, delivers more wealth, more freedom, and more opportunity than any alternative ever tried. Henry Ford wasn't a saint. He was a hard-driving builder who took risks, demanded results, fought for control of his own company, and bet that paying people enough to participate in the economy they were creating would pay off. It did massively. In today's climate where efficiency gets attacked as exploitation, where profit is treated like a dirty word, and where too many want to slow everything down with rules and redistribution instead of speeding it up with innovation and incentives, Ford's example is worth remembering without apology. Real progress comes from people who solve problems, reward merit and output, and align everyone's interests so the pie gets bigger instead of just being sliced differently. We could use a lot more of that mindset right now as we work to strengthen American manufacturing, compete globally, and give the next generation something worth building on. Keep the focus on the product, the customer, and the producer. Pay for performance. Improve constantly. The rest follows. Ford showed it works better than anything else on offer. The challenge is carrying that spirit forward with the same confidence and directness he had. Thanks for listening. If this stirred something in you, share it with someone who still believes in results over rhetoric, and then go out and build or improve something yourself. That's how we keep the American edge sharp. That's all for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please consider subscribing, leaving a like, and dropping a comment below. And if you'd like to support the channel even further, you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram for more content like this, and you can find my other social media in the description below. See you in the next video.